It was Afghans that told me, how could the world not speak up? 3 or 4 million of us killed already. No amount of help that you will give us will help us when we're dead. I'm Dr. Hakim Young, and I've worked in Afghanistan for the past 18 years, organizing public health, humanitarian, and peace-building programs. In late 2004, I moved into Afghanistan, where I worked in the rural province of Bamyan, and then later, for 9 years, I was in the capital, Kabul. When I was in Bamyan province, I organized public health education programs in remote villages. And there I would see children dying from simple treatable diseases like diarrhea. And also I remember an Afghan woman who lost her pregnancies repeatedly, but refused to see the obstetricians because they were all male. Well, before I went to work among Afghans, I was like any typical Singaporean in a non-warring country. I felt since I was young that perhaps war is sometimes necessary, like the war on terror. However, when I began to work among Afghans and tried to do my best to meet their medical needs and their basic human needs like food, water, and shelter, Afghans told me that all those things would not help them if they were dead. And they shared with me painful stories of how almost every Afghan family has lost someone because over 5 decades of war, it didn't matter who was in charge. They were caught in a crossfire and they were killed. I continued to be challenged by the harsh living conditions my Afghan friends were subjected to under continuous wars. Yet, I was strengthened and uplifted by their human support and from their wonderful human resilience. One of the resilient Afghans I've met is this Afghan girl called Hope. I first met Hope in Kabul when she came to volunteer with the Afghan civil society group I worked with. She was 17 and in grade 11. She was socially a little shy, and that's because Afghan societal and religious norms meant that she wasn't very comfortable in a large group, and especially with the male members of the group. She was also a little concerned and wondered how the multi-ethnic members of the group would treat her. Because you see, after 5 decades of war, Afghan society has been badly divided, and that has generated widespread distrust. For Hope, the war became very personal when her older brother was unfortunately killed by the Taliban just because her father was a former government official. However, she also saw how the violence and the worsening of the conflict happened because of US NATO forces in Afghanistan. So once when she was in an online conversation with 2 young people from the US and from Russia, she asked, well, the Taliban have declared that even if there were just 1 American soldier in Afghanistan, they would keep fighting. So why can't Afghans be left to resolve this conflict on their own without any foreign interference? While the war was going on, Hope found a warm, caring space in the Afghan civil society group, and she felt it was different. The group members didn't insult one another, and they didn't seem too bothered by ethnicity or gender. And that created a sense of safety for her. she began to grasp the non-violent programs and practices of the group's mission to build a green, equal, and non-violent world without war. So very gradually, she began to trust the group, including myself, and with that trust, she introduced us first to her mother and then later to her father. Hope then volunteered in the Street Kids program of the group, and as she taught the street kids, her convictions and her confidence grew. Once she testified that I have found hope that if we spread the non-violent program bit by bit, first to the individual, then to the families, and then to small communities and the wider society, I believe that we can bring peace and end the war, if not in this generation, then in the next generation. From the month of May this year, the Taliban were taking control of more and more provinces week after week. So Hope's anxieties grew greater and greater into a crescendo. Then on the 15th of August, Kabul fell to the Taliban, and 2 days later, Hope messaged me urgently saying that she was very fearful. She had a foreboding sense of panic that the same thing that happened to her older brother who was killed would befall her and her family. And she wondered if there was some way she could evacuate out of Afghanistan through Kabul airport. After that evening's message, I lost contact with her, and it was only 10 days later that she reconnected with me with a message that she and her family were in a safe hiding place. However, she was still too fearful to specify where she was. Well, I continue to worry for Hope's safety and well-being. I do hope that global citizens everywhere will hold all governments accountable to their own declarations that there is no military solution in Afghanistan, and also to hold the Taliban accountable to their word in press conferences that there should be no more war. I know it's more forceful, and I want to say it because very few people say it. Because if all these groups are held accountable to their word, then Hope and her family can survive to carry on for another day.